interfaith and social cohesion specialist shows.
The sisters. Oh, you're right.
Specialist shows.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening everyone. Assalamu alaikum, we're just about to go live on air in a few minutes time. Hope you're well and enjoy the fantastic weather that we had today. I think spring is certainly in the air. And you can also tell lockdown is starting to ease.
Lovely weather today. Vitamin B.
Yeah. One of my favorite songs at the moment. Dil galti kar baitha hai. Hope you're well. We're just about to talk about a very topical subject at the moment, which is all about freedom of speech versus the right to blaspheme. Let us know your views, especially after the case that has happened recently in Batley, Dewsbury. Love to get your views on this. Where does the freedom of speech, where does the freedom of insult start and end? And where does it cross over to blaspheme? Today I have a brother Aklaq who will be joining me over the phone at 8:30, so he will help me to dissect. But before that, as always, we're just going to kick the program on air. Assalamu alaikum, good evening everyone. My name is Mr. Ali. Welcome to the show that is the Community Wellbeing Show, rocking the airwaves across the globe. My name is Mr. Ali and this is Radio Aapki Awaaz. You can listen to us on www.aapkiawaaz.co.uk. You can also tune in via Radio Garden app and also Radio Garden app as well. Tune in Radio and Radio Garden app. Also the good evening as well, Amajit. Also the studio number is 0121 6829735, and today we have a topic which I am sure all of you will want to contribute, will want to share your views about, which is about the freedom of speech versus the right to blaspheme or blasphemy as well. Walaikum salam, Jubaid bhai, I hope you're well. You've got the best seat in the house by Jubaid. That's the top fan of Mr. Ali's show of Radio Aapki Awaaz. He is in the studio with me as always, showering me with his love and support. So today, before I go into the Walaikum salam, brother Safraz Ali, I am all on my own today, but with the love and the support that is showering in, I do not feel all on my own. As always, I'd like to share the latest COVID dashboard before we go on to today's topic, which is freedom of speech versus blasphemy. So, as of yesterday, the rules by Boris Johnson and his government have slightly relaxed. But please listen to me before you think you can mix with others inside. That is not the case. So from yesterday onwards, you are allowed to mix with 6 other people outside. That could be in your garden, that could be in a local park, that could be on the street, or it could be outside. So 6 people from multiple households can meet outside. Alternatively, 2 households can meet outside as well. 2 households. So, for example, you may, Walaikum salam, Fana, hope you're well. How's the quarantine? How's the isolation coming along? Hope you're well. Case Kasak Mahmood, Walaikum salam. So 2 households can mix outside as well. Also, from yesterday, you are now able to participate in outdoor sports. So stuff like golf, stuff like basketball, cricket, you are allowed to participate outside. Yesterday, we are also able to participate and organize and lead football and cricket in an organized manner via football clubs, cricket clubs or academies. So yesterday we had our first Jabs B8, absolutely good homes, sweet home. We had our first Jabs B8 FC session. After 3 months, our players were able to have a run around and meet their club teammates as well, and they're the ones that were really pushing it as well. So they wanted to be out there meeting their fellow players and have a run around, and what I have seen is they put at least half a stone on in 3 months as well, and these are young 18, 19-year-olds. So it just goes to show the effect that lockdown has had. We've already started to get a couple of questions about and comments around freedom of speech versus blasphemy, so please give your thoughts about, you know, where does one start and where does one finish. In terms of the latest cases that we have for COVID, in Birmingham we have 813 new cases of COVID versus 862 the week previous. So we have seen a further decrease in the COVID cases, which is welcome news. Furthermore, in terms of the rate of new cases per 100,000 population, it is 71 per 100,000 population compared to the previous week, which was 75. Again, that trend is on a downward trend as well. In terms of those wards, those areas that have the highest cases, please listen out to see whether you fall in one of those. Starting with Shard End, 301, followed by Heartlands, 149. After that, we have Northfield, 144. After that, South Yardley, which has 140. Glebe and Tile Cross, which has 125. Newtown, which has 123. So all in all, they are going on a downward trend, and that's good to see. And that will allow the government's timeline, for example, the next announcement to be made and implemented will be on the 12th of April, okay, which is when non-essential shops will be allowed to open, and myself will be able to go and have my long overdue haircut as well. So in terms of vaccination numbers, 31 million people have now been vaccinated. And as always, a round of applause to all the institutions that are taking part in the vaccine program. And of course, the wonderful NHS staff as well. Hat off to you as always. And what that means is 4 million, Mohammed Gul, thank you very much. Allah Marzi of source on your two sudden deaths in your family as well. So Basharat, real heartfelt condolences to you and your family as well. And yeah, I was saying about vaccination, 31 million in terms of first dose and 4 million in terms of second dose. And we know that it is the over 50s that are being in the current cohort, and under 50s if you have underlying conditions. Absolutely big up to the NHS. And so that is great news. However, as always, we have really tried to emphasize that it is the black, the Asian, the minority ethnic that are always falling behind. For example, now the latest data that we have for those population that are over 70, 91% of the white British population have now been vaccinated. 91%. How does that compare with the BAME community? Compared to the BAME community, 64% of the Pakistani community have now been vaccinated that are over 70s. 62% that are of a Bengali origin have been vaccinated, and 58% of a black Afro-Caribbean origin have been vaccinated. So in essence, about 25 to 30% deficit compared to the overall UK population as well. So there's still a lot of work that needs to be done as well. So if you want to question, please by all means do so. Coming on to today's topic, which is all about freedom of speech versus blasphemy. So for those of you that aren't sure of what blasphemy is, when you insult, when you ridicule a faith or a religion. So for those of you that aren't aware, over the last week, there have been numerous outcry, there have been numerous public demonstrations in Batley, Dewsbury, after a RSE teacher decided in his great wisdom. We don't know all the facts yet, so if someone is connected or lives around Dewsbury and has a lot more information around this, then please by all means add it into the chat. Alternatively, the studio number is 0121 682 9735, and please give us from your horse's mouth as to what the details are. So there's a lot of facts that still are to be announced. We're not focusing specifically around Batley. We are having a wider discussion because living in a Western liberal country, these are episodes that we will have frequented on a regular basis, and we have to make sure that we are prepared and we know exactly how to counter that as well. So let me focus and concentrate, please, on this show. It's a very serious show. I can't be distracted. So please let me focus. So in terms of what is actually the background, so a RSE teacher with his year 9 pupils decided that he wanted to have a wider debate around freedom of speech and also allowing one of the protected characteristics under the Equality Act, which is faith and religion, where does one start and where does one end? And I want to get your views on this as well. So please do come onto the show and let me know what your thoughts are. And he decided in his wisdom to show, and again this is alleged because we haven't had it verified, the caricature of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a quite a negative, derogatory way. And we know within our sphere of Islam, we aren't able to depict the picture, the face of the beloved Prophet in any kind of way, and even that in itself can be construed as going outside of the remit of what is allowed and what is deemed respectful within the boundaries of Islam. But this was completely even further extreme in the sense that the caricature was of a very negative way. What do I mean by that? You must have heard of the magazine, the satire magazine called Charlie Hebdo. They published a caricature, a cartoon of the beloved Prophet, someone who they were depicting to be the Prophet in a very sort of Middle Eastern kind of way, and what they had in the turban was a sort of a bomb that was being lit. And rightly so, people were angry because they felt that Islam, our beloved Prophet, who we hold very dearly, it's in that we hold so dearly, more than our parents, more than our grandparents, more than our sons and daughters. That's how we hold our Prophet in such high regard and in such high esteem. And that was being depicted, and this particular individual who wanted to have a debate, and I don't know whether this was in the curriculum or not. That's why I am saying that we have to determine the full facts. And I'm sure the school, because it is a majority Pakistani Muslim population that attends that school, it is in a demography which is a majority Pakistani stroke Muslim. So I'm sure this was something that the school didn't sanction. So it is something that the teacher in itself, and being an RSE teacher, he must have known full well the overwhelming emotion and the passion that this was going to generate. If it was maybe an English teacher, you can argue that this was something that he was not expecting, but being RSE, religious a school education teacher, he should have been fully informed of how and what it means for us to be the Ummah, the followers of the beloved Prophet. So there's a lot of comments coming on. I'm just going to read some of those, so if that's okay, so that way we can also talk about that. So there's a lot of stuff coming through. Freedom of speech is a wonderful privilege and part of living in a fair state. However, when you deliberately use it to offend others, then it's a hate crime. Absolutely, that's Brother Asghar. proving in a very eloquent and very intelligent way the fine line between freedom of speech, which we all privilege and love, living in a Western society, and the right to hurt. Thank you, Tahir Mahmood. Wassalam, Malak Rahim, Assalamu alaikum, wa alaikum salam. Amajit, how are you? Good news that the COVID numbers are going down. Muhammad Gul, big up to the NHS. We need to follow the school complaints procedures, as the school is an academy and Kirklees Council is unable to do anything. The authorities need to be held accountable. Yes, please let me know what authorities are you talking about when you are saying that they should be held accountable. Javed Akhtar, we also need to find out what our children are being taught in the national curriculum. So that is just a couple of sentiments and messages that are coming through on the Facebook chat as well. So we were talking about how this one individual RSE teacher decided that he wished to show in his RSE, in his RE, religious education class, the depiction of the Prophet Muhammad. And in itself, it is a very derogatory, very stereotypical view of Muslims and of Islam, because we know over the last few years, because of some of those bombings that have taken place, people now assume synonymously with anything that goes off in terms of a bomb with the beautiful and the peaceful religion that is of Islam. And certainly as a teacher, what we want them to do is to teach in a positive, in a factual, in a unifying way. And if you want to generate, there was no reason for that individual, for that teacher to necessarily depict. You could have a wider debate around the freedom without having to descend into a kind of an activity or kind of a lesson which will stir all sorts of emotions and confuse the young people. These aren't university students that we are talking about here. These are impressionable young people that are around 13 or 14 in year 9 in secondary school, who are still in that development learning stage. So the teacher has a real responsibility to certainly have a general conversation rather than to influence in a particular way. And this was also in an area where the MP Jo Cox was brutally murdered on the streets of Dewsbury for having her views and compassionate views, and some of the right-wing elements weren't happy with that, and she was brutally assassinated by someone who was of a right-wing extremist view as well. So there's a lot of stuff that is being included in this. So please, what are your thoughts about that? Was the individual right to show that depiction of the Prophet Muhammad, one in itself, and secondly of the caricature whereby there was a ticking time bomb in his turban as well? At the same time, there has been a lot of backlash on social media whereby the wider community has said, why can't we have a debate? I, as a Muslim, welcome any debate around Islam, and within the realms of respect. By all means, Islam is not beyond critique, is not beyond asking the right questions. But if you are going to descend into an immature, objectifying, abuse, then that is when you stir up negative emotion, and we don't want to go and make the situation worse in any kind of way. And at the moment, we are also have to be mindful. This isn't Islam against freedom of speech. This isn't Islam versus the West. So may I add, it is the Jewish, it is the Christian, it is the Sikh community who, when they have been ridiculed, who, when their religion has been attacked, they have also stirred up very negative, very passionate emotions as well. So it's not necessarily Islam always against freedom of speech, Islam always against the West. We have to say that this is across all religions and also of non-faiths as well. So because I know when we all mention about freedom of speech and religions, people have this idea that it is only about Islam. No, I can correct you. There was a play here in the Birmingham Hippodrome a number of years ago when the young Sikh community were really hurt by that, and they took the matters in our own hand. And that is also a question that I am going to be posing to yourself as well. The way the parents orchestrated and organized their anger and their, I would say, their objection to what was being taught to their children in their school. Is that the right way to proceed? Because as you know, that also then descends into a very negative backlash on a wider level. There was a lot of ministers, there have been a lot of the general public who have then sided with the teacher and sided with the school. They're saying that they shouldn't have sacked the individual. And what are your thoughts about the sacking as well? That's been interesting. Was the school right to apologize and also sack the teacher? Do you think that that individual, that RSE teacher, should have been given some educational classes, should have been better informed, and maybe rehabilitated onto what was a genuine mistake that he may have been made? Because now also his personal details and his phone number have also been published in the mainstream media. And I think sometimes we have to ask whether, demonstrating in a very loud and a very public way, very visible way on the streets outside the school is the right way going about it. Because already you have the schools being off and closed for a number of months. They've only just recently gone back, into the last 3 weeks or so, and now they've been further disrupted as well through this demonstration, and the world and the national news have now descended onto Batley in Newsbury. So again, that's also certainly caused a lot of emotion and a lot of disruption as well. And I think this is something that we have to, certainly to the parents and to the organizers, think about when you are going onto the demonstrations. There's always a real threat that the extremists on both sides of the argument will come and hijack these sort of events for their own purposes as well. So that is something that we don't want to do. So there's a couple of questions that I am posing to you. One, was the RSE teacher well within his rights to have that open debate, discussion around the freedom of speech and the right to offend, whatever your faith or your belief is? And was the school right in sanctioning this, or were they informed, or was the individual teacher doing this off his own back? Furthermore, the school quickly apologized when they realized what was happening, and they dismissed him. However, the parents quickly descended onto the school, and they were visibly and loudly protesting for the removal of this individual. Was that the right approach to be doing that? Or do you think that they should have had a meeting with the representatives of the school, with the parents, with maybe individual Islamic organizations, and had a meaningful dialogue and mediate as to what has happened, get the full facts, and then after that try to come to a solution which was maybe less visible and less public, but nonetheless maybe far more fruitful as well? That is something that I am very passionate about, that, when we are objectifying to many of the stuff that is very dear to us, then we need to be mindful of what is being said, and also at the same time what is being offended as well. So that is something that we are also asking the question. So I have got Brother Aklaq, who's going to be joining me and helping me to navigate around this topic, and should be phoning me in about 5 minutes time. But in the meantime, the studio number is 0121 682 9735 as well. And myself and one or two other people have also asked a number of teachers, a number of scholars to come in and tell the wider community why we hold our dear Prophet in such high esteem, in such high love, for them to understand why this is such a very sensitive, very critical issue for us. And unfortunately, because whether it was lack of time or just the fact that people don't want to come onto the wider media, then unfortunately the offer wasn't upheld or wasn't taken up. So that is something that also I want to talk about, is do we have enough individuals that are able to eloquently and intelligently able to coherently get their message across to the wider community and also to the world news channels as well? That is the very essence of the question here, because this debate is all about convincing the hearts and minds about why such an issue is so dear to us, and what is that red line that had been transcended, and why the 2 billion Muslims across the globe have been hurt in such a negative way as well. So just going to take to some of the comments that are coming through as well. So let me go to the comments. Parents need to engage. We also know what our children are being taught in national curriculum. Yeah. So Javed Akhtar, yes, parents need to engage with schools and agree policy and guidelines in terms of what they are being taught, not just about Islam, but other faiths such as Hinduism, Sikhism, Judaism, Christianity. There's absolutely no debate as far as I'm concerned, and absolutely clear that we should all, when we are in primary and secondary schools, learn about all other faiths. That's an absolute must. It is only through understanding, it is only through sharing knowledge are we able to understand what the fundamental beliefs are for each religion, and make sure that we don't do anything that will hurt anyone's belief, that we have a discussion. As I said before, I am willing to have a conversation about Islam, not that I'm a scholar, but within the realms of respect. There should be always a boundary that we don't cross, and if someone is willing to do that, then the offer is there for anyone to come and by all means have that mature, intelligent debate that we're going to have. The authorities and the boards of schools and head teacher and governors and the academic commissioners, that is where our complaints need to be directed. Absolutely. And this is where we also need to know how to challenge. We need to write letters to the governors. We need to write letters to the schools commissioner, to the Department of Education, to the education minister, to our local MPs as well. This is something that we need to be doing, and that is something that we should be doing. And how many of us are actually taking an active role by being governors at schools? That is a key role, because a governor has the ability to write the policy, the curriculum, and is able to hire and fire staff and the head teacher. So, how many of us do actually even know that? So these are the responsibilities that we have to take. These are proactive steps that we can take rather than always being reacting. That's one thing as a community that I find that we are always very good at, is we react to the situation rather than making and safeguarding it beforehand as well. So that's a very good point that I want to sort of make out there. Protests are difficult, especially during this pandemic. Absolutely. There were a lot of comments on social media that why are these people protesting in such close proximity when that doesn't, the rules don't allow that. We had the protests in London after the brutal murder of Sarah Everard. We had hundreds and thousands of people, and the police were there to intervene. And, even though the numbers were much smaller, I think there was only about 30 to 40 people here, not a huge amount. But again, the question should be asked, why weren't the police also breaking up these particular protests? Because it was against the restrictions. We can't have one rule for one rule for the other. We need to ask our MPs and councillors to take these matters up, as they are the elected members to serve our best interest. Absolutely. How many of our councillors, how many of our MPs, never mind the scholars and teachers, how many of our, I know Baroness Wasi, I know Naz Shah have certainly given their views about this. But generally, this is not a Batley or a Dewsbury issue. This is an issue across all Muslims across the country, because if it's not happening in Batley, it will happen in Nottingham. If it doesn't happen in Nottingham, it will happen in Birmingham. If it doesn't happen in Birmingham, it will happen in Slough. So we all need to be one voice. We need to be educated. We need to know how to mobilize ourselves in order for us to win the argument and get that wider message out there to the wider public. I've just got a couple of more minutes before I go to my first ad break, and then we will take Brother Aklaq on after that as well. Where are we? Freedom of speech. If we deny the Holocaust, we are anti-Semitic. Yes, and they are, and rightfully so, because the Holocaust was a very dark moment in our history in the 20th century, where over 6 million Jews were gassed in Germany and in Poland and Austria, and that is something that is never to be repeated. So we need to make sure that is never repeated, never denied, and absolutely. And I would also ask that we need to make sure that the anti-Islamophobic, anti-faith, anti-religion is also protected from within our legal infrastructure as well. If we speak against the LGBT community, we are classed as being homophobic. If someone insults our holy prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, then they are saying it's freedom of speech. That's right. This is called double standards. We cannot have double standards. Freedom of speech is.
Call can't be taken at the moment, and you can't leave a message.
No, I missed it. So
It's still there.
No, it's gone. I'll just lift the hand. So that was Brother Aklaq, I think, who's ringing me. Hopefully he'll try me again, and I will pick up. So I'm saying, where does freedom of speech start, and where does freedom of speech finish? Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. You are through to Radio Awaaz.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. UK?
Yeah, alhamdulillah, mashallah. Aklaq, how are you keeping?
I am okay, alhamdulillah, by the grace of Allah and yours and your listeners' du'as.
Thank you very much. So today we are talking about a wider discussion about, freedom of speech and also blasphemy after the recent episode that we saw in Batley, Yorkshire, which, as you know, just to give everyone a reminder of what happened, whereby a religious educational teacher decided in his great wisdom to have a debate about freedom of speech versus the right to offend, and he shared the caricature of our beloved whole Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a negative way, whereby he was wearing a turban and there was a bomb that was going off, and we know within Islam the caricature in itself is not allowed any kind of physical or a photograph or a picture, but this was done in a very negative way, and when the parents and the children found out as well, they were hurt, their emotions were hurt, and a lot of passion stewed, which resulted in a small number, 30 or 40 people demonstrating for 2 or 3 days outside the school as well. So the debate that we're having today, Brother Aklaq, is we are living in a Western democracy. What are your views about, our race, our faith? Are these open game, or should we have this discussion within the realms of respect?
First of all, like yourself, I was saddened by the incident.
Yes.
And obviously, religion is sacred, regardless of what religion it is. and because we belong to Islamic faith, therefore we are talking about the Islamic faith today. But I believe religion in its entirety is sacred, because we believe all the religions come from saints, that overall God is the person that is responsible for all the religions. And as you understand, religions have become quite a big topic in discussion. I don't think there should be a big topic in discussion, because if we remember, we are following the same God, and He sent all the prophets, and all these prophets are sacred. So we can't rule out one prophet and give favoritism to the other. However, what we can definitely say is that the prophet which came last, which is Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, he is the arching prophet. And as you know, the final prayer which was done at Miraj in Palestine, Masjid Aqsa, all the prophets were gathered there, where Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, led the prayer. I think you're aware of the Miraj event.
Yes.
Hadith?
Yes, please, by all means, yes.
So just to bring that into context, so they're all prophets are brothers of each other. So there's no difference in that. Now, coming back to the situation which happened in Batley, it's a very sad event. And I was speaking on this to some other people before yourself. And my first of all confusion is, why would a teacher bring this up in a religious lesson, in an RE lesson? Whereas in RE lessons, we are teaching students about faith, and we're teaching about the tolerance of faith. So suddenly, if this comes up, I'm not sure in what context, whether he was trying to show it in free speech, which there is a free speech element, but not with this issue. There's many other issues that people can use about free speech. However, using this in Batley, which is a predominantly, I believe, Muslim school, it just doesn't make any sense. It beggars belief. Why you would do that.
Absolutely, brother. If I can come in there, if this was a PSHE education lesson, and they were having a debate about the freedom of speech versus blasphemy, I could understand, because that's the sort of lesson it is. But the RE is a very factual kind of a lesson where you share with the pupils the belief, the fundamentals, the pillars of that religion, and you move on to the next faith as well. I mean, I've been through RE, I'm sure you have been as well. But why, if he was going to have that, why show the picture? Why can't he have a general discussion around this without showing that particular caricature?
Your point is valid, and that's a question which I suppose many of the listeners have asked as well. What was the motive? Now, definitely, if the motive was to upset people, which he did.
Yeah, yes.
And I'm confused as a person in education. I've never looked at teaching where you would actually go to upset people. I've always looked at teaching as a profession, as a noble profession. Absolutely. And as you know, Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, was the best teacher, because he taught the whole of humanity.
Yes.
So if you think about teaching, it's a very noble profession, which I'm baffled really,
yes,
to why somebody would bring that up. Now I understand the teacher does go on to say this will offend you. So he knows it's going to offend people.
Yes.
Yet he still does it. And if somebody knows that they're going to offend somebody, why would you need to show that to offend? I mean, if he wanted to discuss this issue, he could have made a comment based on this is what happened in France, and you might have heard about it, and that would have opened the discussion up, and he could have relayed the facts on without showing a caricature of that. So we do need to ask the question: is in all the schools that we have in UK, what are they teaching? Not just in RE, but in all the lessons. We should be asking our parents. It's our responsibility to find out from school and get involved with your school's education for your child.
Absolutely.
It's important that you know what your children are being taught, and if you think it's inappropriate in advance, you should go to the teacher and ask them to explain why they're doing something and what's the reason behind that.
Most definitely. Most definitely. If I can come in there, Brother Aklaq. Yes, no, and we're just going to come on that really, because being an RE teacher, he can't claim to be ignorant about the religion. He has a basic understanding of each religion. So he already in his opening gambit realized this was going to be hurt, but he nonetheless sort of carried on. So he's almost like, he was acting on his own accord, because certainly the swiftness in which the school and the head teacher apologized and also dismissed him certainly shows that this was not something that they had agreed to or had licensed off. And also the question that I ask is, did he have a similar debate when he was teaching Sikhism, when he was teaching the Jewish faith, and also the Christianity faith, or was he just having a particular sort of issue with freedom of speech when it came to Islam? That is a question that I would want to have answered.
I mean, that would be really good. I mean, it would be nice, perhaps at the radio station, whether you can reach out to the teacher and say, look, perhaps you can put your view across.
Yes.
Tell us why you did that, and we might get a better understanding of why somebody. I'm sure in hindsight, he realizes what happened is really not probably what his intention was, or only, I don't know, whether it was his intention that, it's difficult to say because I don't know the person.
No.
But coming from a teaching background, teachers aren't normally like this.
No.
If you understand what I mean.
I've been a teacher as well, Brother Aklaq, so I know exactly where you're coming from.
So the last thing we would want to do in a classroom is to upset kids. You wouldn't want to tell them. On the contrary, you would want them to understand that there are people in the world that say things which are nasty about them, about their color, about their race, about their religion, and how you would tackle that. And what does your religion say? How you would tackle that? But you wouldn't go and upset somebody to prove a point on how you would then tackle that issue. Does that make sense, brother?
Absolutely. So we just want to move the conversation onwards now. So we've already sort of echoed how quick the head teacher was, and also the school in terms of apologizing and also dismissing the individual teacher. Do you think that that was the right thing to do, or do you think that the individual maybe should have stayed in his position and just been given some awareness and education and rehabilitating about how sensitive our dear prophets are to us?
I don't know what not to say about this. The school was left in no position. What's the suspended? That person has brought the school into disrepute.
Yeah.
There's been demonstrations which I condone. I don't support demonstrations in any shape, way, or form, especially in a pandemic. But I'm not sure whether the conversation was shut off or whether the parents tried to contact the school and weren't being given the room to have their voices heard, and that might have been a reason for the demonstration to happen, which, as I said, I condone demonstrations which happened. However, for parents to be so frustrated, it's a sad one. And what's more surprising, it's a grammar school, Brother Ali, and normally in education, we normally look at grammar school things like that. I mean, I taught in a comprehensive, local comprehensive, so it's not me saying this, but many people feel that the grammar schools, when you look at schooling, are at the top of the pecking order.
Yes.
So coming from a grammar school, I would have expected a better way of not just grammar school, but all schools, but especially from a grammar school in the context that I've spoken about. I would have thought it would have been more sensitive. And the area is in Batley.
That's right.
And I'm not saying it's right to do it in Inverness or somewhere remote. All I'm saying is, you've got a majority of Muslims, as far as I understand, Batley area, majority of Muslim children going to this school, and then you would show something which would offend or deeply offend any Muslim in the world, and so the reaction of the kids is understood, and the reaction of the parents. But I think we should. My suggestion to you, Brother Ali, is first we should ring the school up and say, look, we just want to hear what's your take on this, because I don't think the school's been in the papers,
Yes.
and papers will say one way or the other way, and some papers are positive and some papers are negative because papers need to sell their headline, but the radio station doesn't need to sell their headline.
No.
So it might be a good idea if you could probably make contact with the school and say, look, we want to give you the opportunity to come on a radio station and explain what happened and where do you think it went wrong, or where do you think it didn't go wrong?
No, most definitely. Leave that to us. We will certainly make those inquiries on behalf of the listeners of Radio Aapki Awaaz. Today we have Brother Aklaq sharing his views about the episode, the rather sad episode that we've seen over the last week in one of the schools in Batley, Yorkshire, whereby a negative caricature of our beloved Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alaihi wasallam was shown to Year 9 children, and it was all about freedom of speech versus blasphemy. You've already mentioned, Brother Aklaq, that you condone all forms of demonstration, but at the same time, the parents wanted to get across their high emotions and their displeasure in terms of what was being taught to their Year 9 children. So, what advice would you give to the listeners and to the parents there? How can they better channel some of that emotion in a more, better way, which will have less of a backlash on social media and from ministers who have also condoned the demonstrations, and at the same time the message would have got clear to the school? Because one thing that I have noticed, Brother Aklaq, I don't know whether you have, but there has been a real absence from some of our elected members, some from maybe Muslim teachers, from Muslim faith leaders, and collectively trying to win the hearts and the minds of the wider public about why this is a red line for Muslims, because all they're seeing is that these are bearded blokes, 30 of them outside a school, disrupting young children's education after 3 months of lockdown, and they've just had a scalp in terms of a head teacher simply because he decided to show something that the Muslims don't agree with. Thoughts?
I mean, there's a vacuum. There is a vacuum
Absolutely.
of parents. Sorry, on a politician.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I'm really again shocked. When it's a critical issue like this or any other issues, where do our politicians actually go? Do they go to some kind of special safe haven where they're not able to hear and listen and talk? I am confused. I mean, I know one MP has. I won't mention their name. One MP has spoken out about this. But my concern is you've got lots of local councillors. I'm sure many of the councillors will belong to the community. They should have come out. And also, I think, looking at all our councillors throughout and other MPs throughout the UK, they should look at this incident so it's not repeated in their towns, and they should look at it and try to understand what happened and make sure that this does not occur, anything similar to this, in their towns or in their schools or in their patch. That would be very, very useful for them to do, to learn from this. But coming back to the situation, what could parents actually do? I don't know what parents actually did about this. I mean, my normal thinking would be that you would contact the school secretary or the school receptionist, and if you can't get hold of them by phone, because obviously, as you know, a lot of things are happening by remote these days because of lockdown, they would then send them an email, and the email can be addressed both to the head teacher, to the head of department, and to the governing body. So you would have one email which would address those three important people and ask for an urgent meeting, and all the parents can do that. One of the advantages we've had in lockdown, if I can call it as an advantage, being a optimist, is you've got lots of social media interaction via Zoom and Teams and other forms. So a parent would have been able to set up a meeting on Zoom or one of the platforms, and they could have had this discussion on the internet and formed an opinion of how to approach that. And the same thing could have happened. They could have invited the school into that, and that would have made a big impact in the discussion. And I think it wouldn't have got to the media the way it has, because you're right. Having people with a beard standing outside it doesn't paint a very good picture because it's already talking about Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and they've characterized that as a terrorist, na'udhu Allah, and you're saying then about a person that you have nearly 2 billion people following.
Absolutely.
2 billion people.
Yeah.
Out of 7 billion.
Absolutely.
So then you would do something like this. Coming back to the situation in France, what the person did was totally unacceptable. Oh, France is France, and we don't really want to look at that. We're out of Europe now, so hopefully our country can pave a better way and better understanding and more tolerance. So this is not about free speech. I don't see how this can become a free speech. It's like saying, Brother Ali, if I start swearing at you, which I'm not saying. For the listeners, if I start swearing at somebody's mom and dad, or calling them you're a terrorist or this, how would they look at it?
Absolutely. No, well said. Thank you, Brother Aklaq, for your insight into the situation that we find ourselves in about freedom of speech versus blasphemy. Thank you, as always, for being the guest on Radio Aapki Awaaz. Thank you. Have a good evening, sir.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Walaikum salam. That was Brother Aklaq giving us a real good opinion of his in terms of what his thoughts are. I'm just going to play a quick little ad break and then come back and read some of the comments on social media and then bring the show to a close. Thank you. Made very good points, didn't he? Point achievements.
The Kashmiri one, census. Yes, and he made good points about the protests. They don't know why.
See, at the moment, nobody knows the protesters who are outside school, what did they do, as the club said? Did they email? Did they speak to the master? Did they speak to the teacher? Nobody knows how that happened. All we see is the standing people outside. So at the moment, everybody who sees those people outside is giving his views. Anyway, हर बंदा अपनी view देना बेहतर होना कि बंदे की तकीद. But actually, क्या होया है? Did they speak to the parents? Did they speak to the teacher? This and that.
The thing is, sometimes you can only complain if you keep going to that school. We can't.
There's way of complaining to the school. You go to governor and then the parents can come and say, probably
I can't complain about it. You see all the one with the beard, all the Daniel,
We don't know how many are parents and how many are just wider public.
Exactly.
थोड़े बंदे जरा नहीं वो चंदा चाहिए तो पूरी पूरी जाने.
Those are masked up to here, you don't know who they are.
Think of it. It can happen here tomorrow. We should know how to lobby complaints. We should know by now how to lobby the complaints, how it can be remained.
Very good too. Papa, taste.
Assalamu alaikum, good evening everyone, welcome back to the Community Wellbeing Show. This is Mr. Ali, your host for this evening, and today's topic is all about freedom of speech versus the blasphemy. And we have Brother Gufran as well, very eloquent, a senior position within the educational field as well. So if you want to phone, the studio number is 0121 682 9735. If you want to phone anonymously without giving your name, that is also fairly acceptable as well. And let's keep it on topic and respectable. So today's show is all about whether the individual teacher in a school in Batley was right in his RE lesson to open up the discussion whether all religions and faiths are able to be scrutinized and be ridiculed, or do they cross over to the blasphemy or blaspheme nature? And we know that religion is one of those subjects or areas where it stirs up strong emotions. We've already commented about how elevated and esteemed we hold our dear Prophet, and we love our Prophet more than our parents and our children. And if someone just is openly ridiculing the Prophet without any context, then that is very insensitive and very immature. And not that we are giving any or encouraging any kind of violence, but we know there are some very, immature people that react in a different way. We are living in a mature, civilized way, and we are able to get across our point of view in a verbalized manner and get our point of view across to how much hurt is being made. And that is something that I think still there's a bit of a gap, and we need to work on. We need to work collectively with our elected representative, with our governors, and those that are in a teaching profession, and also for those that are in the faith background, come together, work with the different sectors in order for people to know that these the prophets, these religions, whether it's Sikhism, Hinduism, whether it is Jewish faith or the Christianity faith, it's not just the Islamic faith. Across all faiths, there are, we can have a intelligent, mature conversation. But if you are going to be starting depicting caricatures when it is against the fundamental beliefs of Islam to have any kind of depiction of the Prophet, never mind having a negative picture which then associates Islam and our Prophet with terrorism, then that is not a debate that should be taking place within schools. And when you have ministers from the Tory government that are also laying in to saying that these parents are wrong and the teacher was right, that is when you know that we haven't orchestrated our campaign against what was being done. So not only are we victims, we've been hurt in the school, then we are also then being ridiculed, and we are still being insulted and targeted by social media trolls and also by ministers in government. So we're getting whacked all over the place because we haven't able to spearhead our campaign in a calm, rational, professional, respectful way. So just going to go back to the social media and read out some of those comments. We need to consider the disruption to the children's education due to the protests and the death threats to a teacher. The school has apologized, suspended the teacher involved, and are conducting an independent investigation. We should let them follow the due process, absolutely, and let the public know. We don't want prejudice. And one of the things that I don't agree with is the publication of the teacher's photo and his address. There's absolutely no need for that. And anyone who has done that, you should be ashamed of yourself. What are you trying to prove? This is where, we had the same issue with the vaccine. People were sharing messages about, fake news, trying to be a hero on social media. Please stop and have a think. And same with this, why publish that? If someone goes there, breaks his windows or does something else, then, again, as Muslims, we are going to be tarnished once again. So please, think very carefully about your actions. So, Yasser Sadiq, wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Yasser Sadiq, our MPs, okay, cowards. They hide until voting day. That's Yasser's opinion. In fairness, I think Naz Shah and Baroness Wasi have spoken about this. So, two female, people that are politically aligned have shown real presence and leadership here. So, well done to both of those. Assalamu alaikum, Ali Bhai, Zabardast program. Salam to all listeners, wa alaikum salam. We need accountability of what our children are being taught in schools. Audit checks. No, actually, I would say go to parents' evenings, check their homework, check their books, and also, again, if you are a governor, you know what is being taught. There's no need to do any kind of audit. It's there for everyone to see if we just take some time to go and do those checks. There are rules and laws to protect Jews. There are rules and laws to protect every religion, actually. But again, we aren't able to, get our point of view across to the necessary sectors and organizations. It took the schools 4 days to take action. Did the school authorize him to share all this material? That is a question that is still remains to be answered. So we can't say anything until we have all the facts. There should be a lesson learned from this fiasco so that it is not repeated again in the future. We are not taught of the BAME community's contribution to the First and Second World War. Just talking about the BAME, there was a report yesterday saying that the abbreviation BAME is not fit for purpose. The Black, Asian, minority, ethnic doesn't include everyone, and that should be scrapped for a better title. So just thought I'd add that into the mix. Mukhtarim Shah, how are you, my brother? Hope all is well. Something blasphemous was written on a wall in Reginald Road against the Jews. It was dealt very quickly by police and everyone and taken off a wall. That was great, and that was prompt that we all salute. Well done, Mukhtarim, and to the local residents and to the police. Every religion should respect each other. Absolutely, that goes without saying. Email the head of education and complain to your MP and local councillors. Well done. Raja Tufail Faruqi, mashallah, doing brilliant program. Thank you, my brother. Thank you, sir. Pai Gufran, how are you? Excellent program. Thank you very much for your support. Blasphemous comments on a wall. I think, yeah, you've already said that. Mukhtarim, well said, Mr. Ali. Thank you, sir. Some people are looking for a reaction, absolutely. And the press are provoking the issue. We must remain calm and have a coordinated effort to address this. Absolutely. This is by someone who obviously is a very senior ranking within a school who has shared that message. And I would echo that as well. So, when anything like this happens, let's not simply go with placards outside a school which is being attended by young children, and what is the message that is being conveyed to them. The rest of the teachers, we shouldn't be intimidating them. We let them know that we are able to convey our messages in a calm, rational way, working with the teachers, with the governors, with the local police, with our elected representatives, and also our mosques and faith leaders as well. It can be done, but we just need to be able to coordinate our efforts. So I think that's a lesson for all of us in future, because this won't be the first, this won't be the last. This is something that we need to be mindful of going forward. And just to let you know, we approached at least 6 to 10 different people to come on this show into the studios, and no one was able to eloquently come and take the baton up and get this message across. And again, we have, very few people that we can able to take to the national media. For example, now something happened in one of our schools. Who can we take out and put them in front of the national media, in front of the international media? Say, look, please explain the hurt that has been experienced by our children, by our community, by our parents, in a respectful, calm manner. There's not many people around, and that is something that we need to, teach. We need to be able to mold and be able to trot, because this is where other faiths and organizations have been very good at, and hence why the media, the wider public, will not cross over the line when it comes to other organizations and faiths. But when it comes to Islam, they feel that it's like an open warfare. It's an open school. They can do whatever they please, knowing that what we will do is we will get jazbat, meaning that we will get aggressive and we will get sentimental, and we will show a very aggressive side, which is what all news channels want, because it makes good news. And all we are doing is playing to their pipe. We are, the mice to the Pied Piper. That's all we are doing. We got to be able to talk in a nice, rational way. I know MEND, the Muslim Council of Britain, these are fantastic organizations that should be taking the lead, working with the local stakeholders to make sure that we are able to get that view and message across. So you can put me forward. Thank you, Mukhtarib. So I hope that is okay. MashaAllah, very nice. Keep it up. The hard work, Majid is saying. Thank you. All is well. Thank you. I think we're coming towards the end. I'm just 5 minutes over now. Unless you've got any more to say, I'm going to now wrap up my show and then tell you what I've got in store for you as well. So thank you. So just to sort of let you know, from yesterday, the lockdown rules have started to ease. May I add, this is not the end of the lockdown. Please do not go outside your local area. You are still not allowed to travel internationally for any kind of holiday reasons as well. If you are in Pakistan, please think about very carefully about returning directly without going to some of the Arab countries, because the way the numbers are going in Pakistan, the UK is seriously considering putting Pakistan on the red list as well. And we know that those people returning from directly or indirectly from a red list country will mean that you have to quarantine for a minimum of 10 days in a government organised hotel at a cost of £1,750 per person. So that is something to be mindful of. So now you are able to mix 6 people outside, and you are able to take part in organised support as well. In terms of today's debate, thank you very much for everyone that participated. This is something that we all need to be mindful of. Our dear beloved Prophet on the eve of the holy month of Ramadan is very dear, very precious to us. We know that, but we have to convey that to the wider public. Why is our dear Prophet so dear to us, so loving to us, and why we love our dear Prophet more than our parents and our children as well? We have to convey that in a beautiful, in an eloquent way, and I don't think we have done that as well. So we are all responsible. Those that are in the media, those that are of a faith background, scholars, those that are elected representatives, those within maybe even a school setting as well. We need to all play our role as well. So that's something that we can sort of take long term as well. In terms of how we go about, public demonstrations, I think it has its purpose, but that shouldn't be your first port of call. That should be your end result if you don't think anything is happening. Speak to your governor, speak to your head teacher, speak to your local staff, and they will listen to your school. The school is there to educate in a professional, positive, factual, unifying manner. They're not there to cause division and hate. And this may have been done in a innocent way. We don't know. But whatever the circumstances are, my always view is that I like the route of rehabilitation. For example, someone doesn't know how much Muslims, myself, love our Prophet, rather than if he does send something, if he was genuinely trying to attack, then that's something else. But if he's done it out of maybe neglect, or maybe not sort of being sort of neglectful and unknown, then that's something else, and then we have a duty to educate them and rehabilitate them as well. So that's something that I'm going to share with yourselves on my last one. Absolutely 100% Ali by Javed Iqbal. This is, yes indeed, we have approached quite a few senior figures for tonight's show to shed some light on the issues. Sadly, no one wanted to come forward. Quite disheartening. And again, this is what I'm saying, Javed, where are our representatives? When it comes to this, we can't keep on, being thrashed and slapped around on social media by ministers in Downing Street and also by the national media. So we need to get our act together. So thank you for everything. So just to sort of finish off a couple of messages in terms of what's happening. So on Saturday morning at 10:30, we have, in combination with Jazby 8FC, with Radio Aapki Awaaz and Alum Rock Community Forum, we are launching the Alum Rock Walking Club, which is going to be launched from Sotley Gate here at the bottom of Alum Rock. The whole purpose is for us to, in small numbers, get outside, start walking, get outside again, get some fresh air, and overcome the benefits of the negative effects of lockdown as well. Secondly, on Saturday evenings, on Sunday evenings from 6 o'clock at Warden Park, we have something called the socio exercise. Bit of a mouthful, but this is where you can walk, where you can cycle, and again in small friends, in small groups of 6, out in the green space, and get rid of that physical and the mental build-up that we've had over the last 3 months and the last year as well. So that again is something that Alum Rock Community Forum, that Radio Awaaz, Jazz B8FC, St. John's have all joined forces to make that happen. And there are about 5 or 6 bikes that we can loan to you for that period. Alternatively, if you wish to, you can bring your own bike, and and after Ramadan, we will also have an instructor where we will join forces with Saheli, who do a fantastic work with the ladies, who will help us to teach people that aren't able to cycle. I hope that's okay. And the final bombshell, as always, that I want to leave this show is that we've already had the Lib Dem candidate for the Metro Mayor, Miss Wilkinson, on our show about 3-4 weeks ago. Next week, we have our local MP in Hodge Hill, Mr. Liam Byrne, coming on, who is the Labour Party candidate for the West Midlands Metro Mayor. So please, if you've got any questions, comment about why he should and what he represents and why you should vote for him, then next week at 8 o'clock, he will be here in the studios of Radio Awaaz, bringing you international, national and local heavyweight stars for you to be able to question and for you to be able to learn off. Until next week, please continue to look after yourselves and each other. God bless. Bye now.
Easy.